and gentlemen, good afternoon. Um, whoops, what's that saying? You live 75 miles down from the. No way! Um, oh, it is. Hi, Laura. I didn't realize you're down the road. I would have stopped by to say hi. Which way down the road are you? Um, Ça va bien? Oui. Hey, Sarita, hola. Hi, everyone. Hey, Ruth. Sorry, everyone. Hey, Chloe. Hi. I was a little late signing on. I've just been actually testing my reception. My phone, because obviously when I'm down in the States, I have a Canadian phone and it's bouncing around between services. So suddenly it went down to one bar, so I turned it off and restarted it. So a quick hello, first of all, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, I put this up as a half hour. We might go a little bit long, um, but I am down in Oregon. I really don't know. Hi, Henny. I really don't know if anyone from Hago has been to Oregon before. Maybe Aaron and Patrick. I know they were in Seattle once, which is great, but it's lovely to have you all here. So if you haven't met me, first of all, hello. My name is Patrick Toomey. I Laura, Laura, you should come. I didn't realize she was down the road. I did put up a tour tonight that I want to do in Portland. I know Portland well. Um, I love this area, so I'm doing a real life tour, as everyone knows. Let me just give you a quick synopsis, and we'll go off and have a visit. Um, so I have been on 3D tours now. Um, someone else. I have been on tours now for well, I think I'm going into 8 weeks nonstop. Is that? Oh, that's right, Laura. I do remember that. How do you say? It? So and it was, but I'm with a group of people. Many of them I know. Hi, Lynn. Many of these were in Spain with me, but I actually did a tour of Banff the day before yesterday. Went to the airport, slept to Calgary, well, at a hotel, flew to Vancouver and down to Portland. I arrived 8 minutes later than my group did. Oh, great, Adrian! Thank you for telling me. Um, and I met them, but I sorry no. So we went down and we went to Voodoo Donuts, which you have to do in Portland, and then went up to the Rose Gardens yesterday and the Japanese Gardens. Oh, Robert, hugs to you. So it's just been wonderful. And I'm out here on the gorge today. This is one of my favorite day trips. I'm saying this to you uh, it has. I'm saying this to you as someone who has been fortunate enough to guide tours all around the world. I think this is one of my very favorite day trips in the whole wide world. Now, let me just embed an image here for you. There is, um, now have a look. Nobody chat for a second. There you go. Now, Terry, Terry, I'm going to be at Fort Vancouver tomorrow if you'd like to join me. I put up a tour. So Vista House, right? That was a monument finished in 1917, 1918, and to the migrants and the people who came out and settled Oregon Territory. The name, the origin of the word Oregon is still just hidden in mystery. Um, and it's oh, Terry, come join me tomorrow. Obviously, Hudson's Bay Company is right up my alley. But let me just give you a sense of the gorge. The gorge is about 130 kilometers, about 85 miles long, and it straddles. You'll have to have a look up there. That's looking from Vista House or Vista Point all the way back up the gorge. So I'm right here, Hood River, and I guess just to sort of move ahead so that we can move along. I have a lot that I'd like to share. But I think this is one of the best day trips anywhere of any tour in the world. I leave Portland, which I think is a really cool city. I come out, I come out east, and you go past so many fabulous waterfalls. The car was being dragged along, and then you come up the Hood River. Now, Hood River is wonderfully lush and diverse, and it's a whole intersection of interesting things. That I'm going to turn up to Mount Hood. From here, we are going to climb up to 6,000 feet to Timberline Lodge, up on the side of Mount Hood, and Mount Hood itself is 3,400 meters, 11,200, 11,300 feet, and there's a glacier on it permanently. And then I'm going to curve around down to Portland. This is why I think it's so cool. You have to go one way with the buses because it's so narrow. And I'm working with a lovely person, but this is actually her first tour ever, and it's a pretty tough first day when you're driving on such narrow roads. Um, Hi, oh, Pamela, you're in Hawaii. Lovely to see you. Oh, by the way, I just having a cold drink because in Hood River you're allowed to walk around the street with beer. This town is 8,300 people. There are 4 breweries and 1 distillery. So, Maria. So, I mean, and I guess my last point before I'm going to turn the camera around and start to show you all the lovely scenery. We're across from White Salmon in Washington State over there. If I were to move and live in the United States, Hood River, where I'm now, would be my number one choice of a place to live. So for me, for my lifestyle, this would be the place. Now, this isn't the perfect view here. Well, the wind doesn't bother me at all, but I'm looking across. So those hills you see in the distance, you're looking across up to Washington State. Now, this is called, and it's so funny that Laura said, it blows hard. No kidding, because this is the kite surfing capital, really, of the world. You know, Moab's up there. Moab's up there, Diane. But the reason why Moab would be a little bit lower for me is, of course, you're also in ski country here. And I'm a huge skier. Brenda, it's absolutely correct. I just want to say to everyone for a quick note, I love the enthusiasm. Please chat away. If you keep them down to just 1 or 2 lines, because otherwise I can't read the whole thing. It's just the nature of the phone. But we are down here. So I am in Oregon, United States. And I'm thrilled to be down here. And I have a photo I have taken with it. But I'm looking across right now to Washington State. You're going to make a choice if you live down in this part of the world. You're either on the Washington side, which catches way more sun, or you're over here in the dense forest of the gorge. Now, for those of you who are local, first of all, thank you for coming along with me. I feel very, very honored when I have people from the area come and share with me. I am not in a half hour, 40 minutes, going to possibly give you the whole history or be an expert, but well, that's the great trade. But look, check this out. Um, it's a very angelic photo that I just had to share with everyone right now. But there's no sales tax here. And then, of course, you have different income tax over in Washington. So people play that game in Portland where you live one side and work on the other, or shop one side on the other. Hey, at least I didn't see you. Now, what is so funny, the only thing I'm not going to be able to show you is we're looking down into the gorge. We're right kind of in the middle of the gorge here. And we are where all sorts of ecosystems come together. So back up here, and I'll try and take a photo later because I'll go up to Mount Hood. Mount Hood's a spectacular place, but this slope up here, up around back, are orchards and vineyards. Cherries are coming out, which is interesting to me that the cherries are coming out now because they came out of the Okanagan about a month ago in central BC. So we're going to drive right up around the back of magnificent Mount Hood. So keep in mind, and I have to talk about this as I always do because I've explained it so many times to people, but we are in the Cascadian subduction zone here. The Cascade Mountains, these are the same mountains we see when we're in British Columbia. So look at this. Now, it's not the hardware store I'm advertising, it's the beautiful picture of Mount Hood out there. Right? So if you could indulge me a minute, because I feel like I really have to explain this. I don't know how many tours I'm going to be able to squeeze in when I'm out here, but if you keep on notifications, I'll tell you, because it'll always be kind of last minute stuff. But 175 million years ago, as North and South America went one way, Eurasia and Africa went the other, we pushed up. The Pacific plate is pushed down under the North American plate. Now, I talk about this all the time on tours in Banff and the Rockies and all of that. But up in British Columbia, Vancouver Island, sorry, is all wedged into the Juan de Fuca plate that's churned up underground. When you get down south of that, and I flew to Vancouver yesterday and then down, so I was staring at all the volcanoes, and I even saw Mount St. Helens that was just smoking away. But this is caused from that early bump right here of the continents. That's called the Cascadian subduction zone. And so right by the Canadian border with Washington's Mount Baker. Then you have Mount Rainier, and you have Mount St. Helens, then Mount Kay, is it? I'm not sure. Mount Hood, then down to Bend, and all the way down to Shasta. Right? This is all active, and even though we are Adams, thank you, Laura, which I saw clear as a bell. And as you get all the way down there, these are all active. So Mount Montezuma, which of course is where Crater Lake is the clearest lake in the world because it's so high up. But even though we're south of what the true glacial line was, we're all on this 2 million-year-old volcanic rock, which is really very young geologically, as opposed to the Rockies, we're talking about 75, 80 million years. But because the volcanoes themselves are so big, they're all above that kind of snow line. I'm just going to find a safe way to cross through here. But they're all above. Thanks. Every Oregonians are so polite on the road, by the way, everyone. I remember this. They have a lot of low speed limits. But this is kind of Hood River's main street. Now, why would I want to come and live here in Hood River? Well, Hood River to me is the perfect mix of skiing, water sports, cultural activities, outdoor lifestyle, and you're the right distance. Thanks, Lorraine. The right distance from a city. Portland is, a fascinating place. And I was really warned on this trip. They said that Portland just isn't looking that good, and there's really inexcusable homelessness all over. There's lots of reasons that is a deeper, longer talk, but it's a great city. Um, and so there's lots that goes on. This is the old Masonic Hall right here, going way back. So this was a lumber town and a port. It's called Hood River because the Hood River flows into the Columbia. Now the Columbia River, of course, and I want to get, I can actually do it from here. I want to get high enough. Now you look at the distance. Now Laura will know all about this. It was howling wind this morning. This is, and I have, Mary, perfect weather. I have been here. I don't know about the ribbons just say HR, Hood River, John. But there's the mighty Columbia River. So you're looking at Washington State. There's the river. This is the first time in my life I've ever been here. And I think I've been here at least a dozen times, both on my own vacations and bringing tours up here. This is the first time that it's calm out there. So normally you see people kite surfing. I saw them earlier today. It was howling wind because this is natural wind tunnel. So the dry land in the distance out back there, merci, out the distance, that dry land is because we've come over, really straddling the Cascade Mountains through here. And by straddling those mountains, you have that sort of temperate rainforest by the van life, which is totally Oregon. You have that interesting sort of coastal effect. And then when you head up and over, you get into this dry central plateau, and it really stuns people how dry it is. But this is what people do in Hood River here. So this is why I wanted to come up and show you this. So the windsurfing, the kite surfing, but the new technology behind this is amazing. Well, Marilyn, great question. Let me answer that in a minute. But these new things that come out of the water. So I kite ski every now and then. I wouldn't consider myself an expert, but I kite ski. But this is all this kite surfing because of the natural wind tunnel. It's fantastic. So no, Marilyn, they don't get a ton of wind down in the gorge. Say the gorge, if we call it 80 miles long. Thanks, Pauline. It's a fabulous place. But Mount Hood, which is over 11,000 feet high, suddenly you get tons of snow up there. And so just up the road, it will take us 1 hour to drive from here to Timberline Lodge up at 6,000 feet. I'm almost tempted to put up a last minute tour when I get up there. Is that? Thank you, Hannah. So here's the Overlook Memorial. By the way, so it's talking about those who fought to keep the U.S. Now, remember, when we're on the West Coast here, it's also where you had internment here, and they tried years ago, it caused a huge backlash, but they tried to take the names off of Japanese American soldiers who had served. So that was sort of the one controversy in the history of that. So there's your sockeye swimming upstream, and I don't think I got a very good photo, but let me see. No, I wanted to embed one, but it didn't upload. I stopped at the Bonneville Dam, so some of you will know that. Of course, there are, Laura, you might know better. I think there's 9 dams on the Columbia River in the U.S., and there are 3 on the Canadian side. Now, the dams are very important. Of course, they provide good, clean energy. However, they did stall the migration of salmon, so there's fish hatcheries all the way up and down. We're in the land of the Yakima Indigenous peoples and many different bands or tribes that lived in this area. Hi there, trees. Nice to see you. Isn't it lovely to see the flowers out? I was up, say, yesterday in Portland at the Rose Gardens. But this is just such a unique sort of mix right here because we're at the junction of this massive Columbia River. And of course, I've been to the headwaters many, many times. Hey, Terry, the headwaters of the Columbia River, which is up in the Kootenay, which is actually in the Rocky Mountain Trench. So it's south of Radium Hot Springs, south of Kootenay National Park. That river then flows north from Yeah, just south of a place called Fairmont Hot Springs here over there. Goes all the way north, up past Golden. It picks up the Kicking Horse River there. Goes up around the Big Bend. Thanks everyone for the tips. Then it flows down through Revelstoke, where I've done many tours, and then it comes down through Washington State, and it creates the boundary between Washington and Oregon. And then it eventually discharges around Astoria, which is on the Oregon side. We absolutely do, Terry. And it's so funny because tomorrow I will be, I think, literally, Terry, come over to Fort Vancouver if you want. Happy to meet you there. It is so much fun. I love these perspectives out here. So there's the dry, warmer side, whereas you're on the much more temperate side down here. But what you're not going to see behind me, but feel free to Google it, is mighty Mount Hood. There's boats there. That is the same Columbia River that I have shown you. And as I say, the largest discharge out into the Pacific Ocean. Now, a town like this is exactly what you'd expect. A real lifestyle community, very sporting. It was a lumber town, but then that all kind of collapsed in on itself when this all became a national scenic preserve in the Columbia Gorge. But you have to agree that. Hey, Mary Lou. So because lovely dogs out here. So when it becomes the national scenic preserve, but this was the kind of community that was able to transition very easily to being sports and tourism and activity. So about 8,300 people. So tiny compared to the 8,700 permanent people that live at home in Bam. Lovely stone here. Now they are building suddenly with all that really hard metamorphic rock. Now the geology of the area is just outstanding. The Columbia Gorge is not truly a glacial gorge, but it's the outfall or the flooding from the glaciers that came through. So we're far enough south here that we stopped right where the glaciers end. Thanks, Dana. This community art installation entitled "What Home Means to Me." Lovely community statement. You've seen these other trips, but I hope everyone is well too. But so you're at this junction between a gigantic volcano, and what volcanoes do is they create, of course, an excellent environment for agriculture. What they also do, though, is they erupt from time to time, and not very far up. And I'm sorry, it just didn't upload. But yesterday on the airplane, I caught a photo of Mount St. Helens puffing away. Now, this is so typical. I'm down on the slope, so if we could see it up behind me, this is my kind of church. Now, I'm not a person of faith, but seeking justice, loving kindness, and worship. Yeah, loving kindness. There you go. So you can see why this would be my town. I could go skiing one day, and I could go down into the water, and then I could head into the dry interior if I wanted to. But lots of boats up there. But let's go up around to the main city park here. And of course, culinary destination as well. Oregon here. I remember, well, of course, I haven't been back. I was adding it up. Laura, were the big fires 2018 or 2017, the ones that burnt on the gorge here? It's the last time I came here, I had a group, and I've never come to Oregon and not done a trip up the gorge. 18, yep. So that's the last time I was here, and I had to cancel the tour. And it's one of the very, very few tours, because I love everyone. It was one of the very few tours, thanks, TJ, that I didn't actually enjoy that much, because 10,000 homes, I think, were under threat that day. And I said to the group, we can't do the gorge today. It's not safe. Well, we paid to come to the gorge. And I said, I feel sorry for you. I feel a lot more sorry for the people losing their homes today. And I could see the fire damage. I will say, it's active, Joanne. Yeah. The few years, I actually wrote a blog about it. Somewhere in my blogs, I have a thing about Mount St. Helens, but I've got a couple about Oregon. But I brought Finn here, 2016, and he went to the Welch's skateboard camp, where thanks, Priscilla, rubbed shoulders with kids with way, way, way too much money in their lives. But I stayed, and so I biked up and down to Timberline Lodge every day. That was a really fun week. It was a gorgeous home over here. Let's go up and loop around a little bit. I am sorry. I am sorry if I go a little bit over. By the way, so if I make it back in time tonight, I will do a walk in Portland. I would love us to have like a permanent guide in Portland, because it's such a fascinating place. in a half hour, 45 minutes, I'm not going to give you Portland. And on a Sunday night, hi, Judy. Thank you. But at least we get a little bit of a taste of it. But these cities here tend to be kind of turn of the century. The main settlements, so Lewis and Clark, of course, came here. They were sent out by Jefferson after the Louisiana land purchase to come and really make a sovereignty mapping and claim out here in the Western United States. So this is the Lewis and Clark route, and it is significant. And I do tip my hat to the journey they made because it was complicated. And one of the interesting stories you hear is when they hit the rapids where the Bonneville Dam is today, and there were a few salmon in the salmon ladder, so that was really fun. But when they hit those rapids there and finally had to really portage across for over a mile and a half, I mean, that was a huge job in those days. They started to meet the indigenous people um, who were using canoes far more adapted to the environment because there's a ton of food here. So we're no longer really coast Salish, but we're very much that same West Coast type of land. So they were the ones to come out here and meet up with the Pacific. The Columbia River goes right back to the fur trade, New Columbus, right? So that's always a bit more complicated. Whereas the name Oregon itself is really not that clear. It was first noted by the Spanish coming up here, but really it might be Wisconsin indigenous name, meaning west flowing river, or it could be oregano plants that were growing in the south of what is now the territory. But this became the Oregon Territory. Now, when they started settling west, the settlement of Portland, for example, is 1845. Let's keep in mind that's pre-Civil War. And it was actually set up as a whites-only state in the early days. So Portland, famous for its very progressive politics. It reminds one that we should, never forget. But up here in Hood River, you can be here from the city within an hour. Of course, I did a scenic route. This very classic cedar shingled Victorian architecture up on the sides. So they started settling out here back then, but then it became a big destination in the 1930s during the Dirty 30s from the Dust Bowl. People would head to Oregon, very understandably. Lovely neighborhoods up back here. So it is, all these houses are gorgeous. Oh no, this Hood River is right up my alley. I'm in the middle of the road, so I have to be a little careful. Oh, I really am in the middle. I want to try and show you down the gorge. Oregon drivers are really, I'm not joking, they're super polite. They still have lower speed limits. Carol Walker, hi there, Carol. Nice to see you on board here. That's my friend Carol, everyone, who you once met on a tour in Fort Calgary with me. Carol has been as far as Iceland with me. But Carol, I was just saying, we're in Hood River here, which is probably my first choice of a town to live in here in the States. So if I look out this way, this is where I'm going to be driving out when I leave. If I crossed the river and went up the road, we would actually find Stonehenge. There's a gentleman who totally rebuilt Stonehenge at the end of World War One, Laura. It was a sort of a memorial, but it was also sort of a statement of human construction. So a really interesting thing. And then it just gets drier and drier. No, Marilyn, my new website is due up and running October 10th, but thank you for asking. And then I'm going to have to learn how to navigate it. Now look at this. Brimstone boulders. So what was a church is clearly a bouldering center now, which is rock climbing. So you've got rock climbing through here. The climbing through here, I will have promise. The rock climbing through here is spectacular. I did do a whole climbing week. Well, no, I got about a week, 4 days or something, on a huge lava flow. Totally different than the climbing at home because we're out here with the hard rock, which is totally different style when you're climbing that metamorphic rock than what we climb. Look at this for a little bit of public land. So, I don't know, Mary Lou. Isn't that great? I love public art, but now I finished this tour in Vancouver on the 10th, and then of October, and the 14th I fly to Newfoundland. But when I get home on the 24th of October, I'll be home for a good long time. Now I want to show you, this is not the Bridge of the Gods. That's 30 miles away. But because the landslide would happen about 700 years ago, that actually blocked the Columbia River for a period of time, the indigenous people called it a bridge of the Great Spirit because they were able to walk across the river. Um, but out there is, I think that one has a toll for $1 on it. You can drive over to Washington, and if you drive up and over that, suddenly the land gets really flat, very dry and arid out there. Stonehenge is well worth seeing, the real one. But this one was just so random. I've only been there once. I was just driving down here and found this out of the blue. Like it's amazing it's not more publicized as it. Now I wish you could all be here walking with me to smell this as well because the gardens are just gorgeous. And over there, the people over in Washington, they're getting so much more light than on this side. So after I was up at Vista House, that I'll put up one more photo so you see it, the monument to the settlers here in Oregon, and then the road itself is Highway 30. Of course, in the United States, you can find Highway 1 down the East Coast, and that's the Army Corps of Engineers. Oh, it wasn't the Army Corps, but the U.S. engineers have built this incredible road up this fabulous canyon. Look at this nice restaurant. Seeing that, see? So in a town, and of course it's Sunday as well. So it's just a lovely clear day out here. But you'll see the big vats. So where people, thanks Chloe, where people used to load timber, now they brew beer and welcome people here to do all sorts of sports and activities as they go around. Let's go around to this town park. I'm being very safe as I wander along out here. But Hood River is really on 3 steps, basically. I don't think I'll try and scan. There's a train going on the rails on the far side heading out to the park. Oh no, Maryland, it's only 8,300 people. There's not large office blocks. They had proposed expanding town and making it a lot bigger, but they felt that would all go up in smoke. See that? That's my cannabis joke for the day. So locally grown cannabis, everything grows around here because as you're at the base of a volcano, you have wonderful rich soil in all directions. Then you have this massive fresh water. Oh, Maryland, everyone works here just like in Banff, right? I would expect some people maybe commute down to the city, but no, they come and work here. This is the other thing, of course. Oregon on its license plate has the great pine tree. Look at this gorgeous growth. So that's a cedar right there. It's a cedar tree, I should say. Fabulous cedar. But down in the lower areas by the river, then you're looking. Well, the remote work is increasing here. Absolutely. So you have some tech. But again, 8,300 people is not a lot. You've got the transport center. You have tourism activities. You have the bridges, the trains, schools, doctor's offices. Pretty quickly, you actually find everything. This is where I'm trying to show you the gorge a bit more. There's the bridge down the gorge in the distance. But it's just at the hospital over here, Laura. That's pretty cool. Oh, yep, Chloe, there is a library. But it's also very, very fit. I mean, this is, a hilly place. I find Oregon really, oh, that's so cool, Laura. I really wish I knew before. I would love to invite you over here. There's a lady just doing her homework there, so I'm going to walk away. Don't disturb her. But lots of different restaurants. So, yeah, the one up the hill I'd eaten at a few times. Let's go. Three River Grill is lovely. Now, this transition. So as we go west, they do get winter storms out here, but nothing like further north, right? With the windsurfing, Diane, this is considered the top in the world. And really, they've moved on to kite surfing. Again, I kite ski from time to time, which is actually easier than kite surfing because when you're on skis, you not have to get up out of the water. Hi, Annette, but it's just a bit more of a, you can take off a bit too fast. See, this is classic Oregon right here. The truck, that's actually a tent on top of that truck, and there's their license plate with the tree on top. It's just lovely to see. So for those of you just joining in, we're walking through Hood River, Oregon, in the Columbia Gorge. Typical town now in a perfect kind of lifestyle climate. It is actually a slightly cooler temperature here than elsewhere in the state, just because it's in the shadow of the Great Mountain. And I would be very tempted to try and put up a last-minute tour up at Timberline Lodge, but I'm just watching my time. So there's a glacier on the other side of the volcano that's up behind me. If you scan on the map, you'll see that there is actually a gigantic volcano. It's the highest peak in the state, and it defines so much. When you see images of Portland, the tourism images and everything, it really defines the backdrop. It was a little hazy this morning. Boy, the wind is good and clear. And again, there's 4 breweries in town. Thanks, Dan. And one distillery. There might even be more, but that's a great big brewery out there. Really, it was the West Coast, Northwest, Pacific Northwest of the U.S. that made the whole IPAs pretty famous. But here, I just wanted to share with you, if you'd like to get a little bit of history of the area. Thanks, Anna Marie. I've actually ended up with really good reception here. I was a little worried at the beginning, so I kept resetting. And I like this, the Hood River Chamber of Commerce. Uh, oh, the birds. So we haven't seen any eagles, and we did see salmon when we were in the locks of the Bonnyville Dam. It's a bit late in the season for that, although of course they're not running in BC yet because the rivers have been too hot. But we did see lots of buzzards circling around, and of course cormorants. And I kept calling it a seal, but it wasn't. It was definitely a sea lion that was swimming around by the Bonnyville Dam catching yummy salmon. Um, that's great, Ruth. I'm really thrilled. And of course, typical, here you go. Now, there's lots of wine regions and orchards as we go up. So live music and wine tasting. I'm sticking because I'm working, so I'm just sticking to one light beer. And I've only managed to get halfway through the can. Although I do like the fact that the can says 8% back to local causes. So I feel like that was money well spent. I feel like I've contributed to both my thirst and to society. So, and then the other things, oh, the boat. So there's a ski boat there, totally. It's a good point. Now, you've talked me into it. And just a quick update. Now, I have already, believe it or not, hit time, everyone. I kind of figured there'd be a chance I'd go a bit over time. I do want to say, as always, first of all, peace and love to all of you. I do want to say that Mr. Finn Toomey right now is up in Olds, Alberta at an agricultural fair with 48 Irish farmers. And he said the days are just going great. I had a message from the group leader saying that everyone's loving him. He's doing a great job. Thanks, Laura. Um, so I feel really thrilled about that. It is a gorgeous day here. It's so the only thing. So this trip, what I'm doing on this trip. So I planned this. The group leader, a lovely man named Jerry. They're the same. Well, the same fellow I took to Spain in March. We planned this trip 3 years ago, and then of course it got delayed and delayed and delayed. Needless to say. So that's where. Thanks, Jane. So that's why we're doing this. But we're here. So yesterday, went up to the Rose Garden. Thanks, Adrian, which is a bit of a haul for some of the people in my group. It's quite steep where you have to drop off. But tomorrow, I'm actually going to come back to Multnomah Falls just because the parking was so plugged up being on a Sunday. Thanks, Robert. And then we're going to Fort Vancouver and then up to the Mount St. Helens Visitor Center and up into Seattle. I'll probably stop at Olympia to see the state capitol. So then I'll be in Seattle the next day. But yeah, key. And then from Seattle, we're going to go around and take the Coho ferry over to Victoria, BC. They're mostly from the state, mostly from Ohio, Anne-Marie. The people have done tours with them for ages. I like the old walk on the corner here. Oh, it's the lovely people. But there's also, and I'm going to drag her onto one of these tours if she wants to, but Danny W. Oh, I see the purple. Sorry, I hadn't noticed that, Adrian, at the very beginning. I survived. Yes, abuse. Sorry, I was looking at the Hood River sign. Yes, I think this is very, very important. Many of you will have seen the shirt I was wearing the other day, my orange Every Child Matters shirts, as it was Truth and Reconciliation in Canada, and I have that with me. But I'll try and drag Danny onto the screen one day if she's up to it, because she's been on loads of tours with me over the years, starting in Cuba. And so she's on this tour, but it will be fun. So there is the mighty Columbia River out there in the distance, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm sorry if I missed you. I was trying very genuinely to sign on early on this trip, but then I was worried about my reception, but actually it's been perfect. So here we are at a crossroads really of two states, Oregon and Washington, and then east-west straddling the Cascade Mountains. So you go, and then we're sitting at the toe of a massive volcano. So if you haven't seen it, please feel free to Google Mount Hood, and you're going to see where I'm up to. And then if I manage to get one or two photos when I'm up there, I'll post them on our camper van group. But as always, I do just want to say thank you to everyone for joining me. I've squeezed this, and I'm going to get a quick little bit of food, and then I'm going to carry on with my day. So thanks, Amber. If all goes well, if I make it back, my goal is to try and make it back to Portland for 6. And I just felt I have to take you on at least one week Portland walk because I have to. Terry, my pleasure. Lovely to see you over there in your gorgeous state. I love this part of the world. I feel very at home here. It's quite easy. I forgot to pack my sunscreen, so that's why I keep putting my head down. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, lots of love and hugs to all you. Annie, big hug to you. And there you are looking over at Washington. Hélène, bonjour. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I'll leave you be. I'll get a quick bite to eat. And I will see you tonight, hopefully, or tomorrow at Fort Vancouver. All the very best. Bye-bye.